You're strong.
I know.
It's okay. I've got you now.
Just like in the movies.
Welcome to SuperWonder Legacy. I'm Jared. I'm here with Brit. What's up, Brit?
Hello, hello.
And today we are discussing, so we have a fun idea. So those of you that have been watching the show for a while know that we love the show Blood of Zeus. So we decided, what happens if DC merged with Blood of Zeus? Because there's a lot of room for that. And it blossomed into DC's like role as the new as like the pantheon of like gods, if you will, because it's been long said that comic books are essentially the modern day mythology. DC specifically because of how their characters are positioned. So we'll start talking about this, but yeah, Britt, how about you start by telling the kind folks at home how much we love Blood of Zeus?
We love it. I mean, I don't know. Honestly, I've watched it twice already, and I'm going to be on my third rewatch because there's so many details, and just to really understand the story. And I just love the character designs. I love just how they are characterized. And the one thing I don't like is Hera. I understand her frustration and everything, but to kind of make her seem like the villainess, I don't like
Season 1. Season 2, they kind of eased off her.
Yeah, they did. But for that, like, she's playing the role of the scorned woman. And I mean, her husband is basically like laying his scroll everywhere. And he has this basic his characterization is basically Papa was a Rolling Stone. And you have 50 million kids running around, and it's heartbreaking. And also the fact that she is way more powerful than he is, but she put herself aside for him to be this all-powerful king and all of that, that is a true thing in reality of what women do. So this goes back to how when people say that, Superman and Wonder Woman, or just any of the Justice League, but specifically Clark and Diana, they need like this anchor, human love interest or whatever like that to anchor them within humanity. But this show really showed the gods in the most quote unquote human way possible. And to show that they are just as drama filled, just as flawed, just as dysfunctional as humans. And the situation that they go through are the exact same situations that humans go through. So that whole thing,
and I bring that up later in the presentation.
Oh, wonderful. So yeah, that whole thing about needing these humans or whatever to ground you is just it's not true. So what I just love about the show is that they really showed these gods that, yeah, they try to be, think of themselves as above, but it really shows that they're not.
Exactly. So in order to anchor this discussion in the gods, we're going to start off by talking about how the gods factor into Diana. So we're going to start with Wonder Woman's origin, with the first origin, which is the one where she was made from clay. Now, again, Brit and I have been very vocal that, at least in our opinion, when it comes to which origin we prefer, it just depends on the story. Because we've obviously read
Exactly.
stories that, you know what, the Zeus origin has a good story, so is the Clay origin. So it really doesn't really it doesn't like upset us that much when the Clay or Zeus origin is used.
Right. I'm very neutral. And as a writer, it's kind of like I love the drama
Mm-hmm.
of the Zeus origin because like it's drama. It's really putting the gods in a position of, showing that they are in this like battle of power and that Diana is like this pure out of all the flawedness or whatever that they have, this like I said, this dysfunction that they have, Diana comes with the purity that's needed. And she is the true bridge of the Amazons and the gods. And not only that, but we have to really reiterate, hammer down the fact that the Amazons are still earth women.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I can't stand when,
Oh my God, yes.
there are some that want to alienate the Amazons and just make them seem like they are, I don't know, from a total different planet.
Because
And
they're
they might,
not. It's like, and if you go by the George Perez origin, Diana is still an Earth woman, aka a human. It's because a lot of fans, I think, have this very superficial view of what humanity is in this universe.
exactly. Humanity equals just a regular, mortal person, and especially a mortal person from America. And I really just cannot stand that xenophobic type mentality from the fans, and
Hmm.
especially Superman fans, because no, Superman, Clark, Cal is from a different planet. He is not from Earth, and that is something that needs to be accepted. And it's not taking away his humanity. It's just acknowledging who he is and acknowledging his heritage. He is an allegory of Moses, a refugee. He he didn't it wasn't by choice.
Hmm.
So to try to take away who he is, it was already taken away. And he had no choice of that matter. So yeah, so for writers to just make it seem like that you're only good if you are American and immortal, what is that really saying about every other child that is or young adult that are reading these characters, that are wanting to be inspired by these characters, and they feel like, okay, this is not resonating with me, or this is not for me.
Well, it's really simple. It's
So
saying you don't belong. That's what that's saying.
right.
Which
And
which for the company that publishes stories that, like, for people that write these stories about supposedly inspirational characters that accept literally everyone, it's a little hypocritical.
exactly. So for Diana and the Amazons, and you brought up Perez origin, they are reincarnated women throughout the centuries that dealt with the evils of the outside world, of, being assaulted, being murdered, just things like that. And that still happens today. And, and so you can see why these women want to find a safe haven from that cruelty. And there's nothing wrong with that. There shouldn't be anything wrong with that. So, but to me, they are still so much more accepting, and no, they don't trust men. Why should you? There's this meme still going around about if you were stuck in the woods or whatever, and would you be I guess rather be stuck with a bear or a man? And a lot of people say a bear
Oh
because for
God.
some reason a man, like, it is cruel. Humans have this cruelty And we are creating wars. The what's happening now within other countries, and how heartless people are showing themselves to be on social media, just officials, not helping. We're not asking for a utopia, but we're asking for better. That there shouldn't be wars if it's unnecessary. There shouldn't be, people being bullies, and or that the fact that we've dealt with a pandemic
Hmm.
and it seems like people's attitudes are so much worse that it's pretty much divided people, and even elections showing people's racism, their that they just are not for unity. So with the Amazons, again, they're far more understanding than the outside world. And Diana represents that understanding and that fight for peace, that fight for acceptance. And like I said, she is an earth woman. She is far more um, ingrained within earth than Clark,
Yeah.
in some degree. Just because he grew up in Kansas, I just feel like, again, that's more of a stereotype because you pick like the what you think will be the most, I guess, grounded place on earth and still acceptable in America's term. Yeah, so that is kind of like playing on a stereotype, and it's kind of
Exactly.
offensive. So yeah,
In a way, it's also the way to portray Clark as the simple farm boy. But
yeah. So
at
so
this point, I'm just like, oh god.
right. So with Diana's origin, like I said, I can go either way. As a writer, you just make it work. And
Hmm.
honestly, I love marrying the two. I love having where maybe it's a little bit of ambiguity to it.
Hmm.
Right now, I am doing a story featuring Austria with Hera and Hippolyta, and it's marrying the two origins together. So, yeah, this is something that can work. It is controversial, but you can make it fun and entertaining. It's all about it is fictional characters, so they are going to go through these different stages, these different iterations, but it's all entertainment. And like I said, I don't care for, I can go either way. I am leaning more towards the clay origin because of the purity of it and what it represents as a woman, and just that pure, yeah, pure earthiness, and
Hmm.
just Wonder Woman's, what she represents. And
Hmm.
honestly, the connection of her and Hippolyta being that they are reincarnations of a mother and her, lost child, unborn child. So I do lean more onto that, and and just the way it is more so of a mother-daughter story.
Hmm.
But I also just jump for the drama it contains with Zeus. And also adding in with Perez the fact that Diana was gifted by all of the gods too.
I do like that
That
a lot.
yeah, because she can have different powers. With Zeus, as much as, and we talked about it, love the lightning and stuff like that, for her to just exemplify these different powers makes her even more so unique.
That was my problem with the new 52 when they put in the Zeus origin. They never really explored the whole daughter of thunder thing. And I'm like, you think that would have come up once when she's like hurling lightning bolts at people.
Right. The thing is, I mean, Azzarello, he had his story and he wanted it pretty much closed off. from anything and everyone. But what Soul tried to do was he tried to find a way to, you know, I guess build on those aspects, like the god of war mantle. He tried to explain it that Diana wasn't this bloodthirsty warrior. She wasn't trying to make war. She was just trying to understand it to end it,
Yeah,
for
Tomasi.
good. Right. And so yeah, so that is the type of storytelling that you would rather, gravitate to. But yeah, I really blame Azzarello for being so stingy and closed off.
I know
For
I
the
would have
fact
liked
that
it more if factored into the DC universe. By the way, I actually got to meet Azzarello at a con. I mentioned how much I enjoyed his Wonder Woman run, so there you go. Nice
cool,
guy. So yeah, with me, it's like I like the story of Zeus because it really anchors Diana in like a lot of in like the Greek family. In other words, a little differently than it does if she's just like the being that they gave these gifts to because they liked her. So really, with me, yeah, it really depends on the story. Personally, I lean more toward actually I really don't have a preference. It really just comes down to the story because I like this, but I also like the clay origin. Is there some really
right,
cool stuff that you can have with this? Of course you can.
right. It honestly the back and forth of fandom, it really gets on my
Mhm.
nerves.
Yeah.
It's so annoying, and honestly, it's fiction, it's storytelling, and all you have to do is just if you don't like it, ignore it. If you do, embrace it, love it, and you don't have to feel bad for liking it either.
The more you talk about it, the more it makes you think you're actually a fan of it. By the way, can I
Right.
say I love the new 52 design for Zeus with the dreadlocks. That just looks
Yes.
so freaking
Honestly,
badass.
I love because normally, he looked like a muscular Santa Claus,
Hmm.
at some point, or he looked straight up like Santa Claus with the belly when
Hmm.
he wears the toga. And it just looks so, yeah, it's not attractive. But this Zeus is very attractive, and you can see why, you know, women of different, even species that Zeus,
Hmm.
flocks to Zeus. And even honestly, this reminds me, the Zeus, New 52 Zeus and Blood of Zeus, they have sort of similar designs.
I was about to say, I wonder if they were inspired by if of like when they were making Blood of Zeus, they were inspired by this.
Yeah, and I really like this design. I wish they would have kept it, um, because I don't know, it's very different. And that was the one thing that the New 52 did right, um, as far as the designs, was trying to be different and also just, like I said, and be different, be modern, and just have the gods look human, in a way,
Yeah,
and really
it's kind of
just,
like when they say update for the modern audience, but this is the way it's supposed to mean.
yeah. So to see the god of thunder, the king of the gods, having dreads is just so
It's so
different.
badass. It's like that.
Yeah,
I'll never forget the first time I saw the image of him holding Diana at the end of the arc, where like he re-ages back up, and he's got like thunder coming out of his eyes. He's holding her. He goes, "Okay, so now it's time for the god of thunder to retake his throne." And I'm like, "Oh, this is so badass."
and now his dreads are like Snow White. Yeah,
Yeah,
that was the, the design is amazing, but DC,
I
of
am
course, they have
so
to go back
glad
to,
that I'm glad at least the benches kept it in the run instead of just haphazardly getting rid of it as soon as Azarella was off the book, because that would
and
have been kind of sad.
I mean, of course they did anyway. Rucka, he turned the gods into Disney animals. And then when they showed back up, we got Santa Claus Zeus again,
But I'm like,
which
how
is
does
so
that work?
boring.
If that's supposed to take place before this, what? Uh, so you're telling me that like Superman Reborn changed Zeus's skin color?
Yeah, but you
It
know,
doesn't work. I don't know what is going on with this. By the way, why
honestly,
can't
this,
Zeus look this way? Because this honestly looks better than he's ever looked.
well, like you said, he does have a skin. His skin is much darker,
Yeah.
and I believe in Brian Hitch JLA, his rebirth,
Hmm.
Justice League, that they showed younger Zeus,
Hmm.
and he seemed like he was um of African descent. So to have him, I guess, look as maybe a black man, at the time, rebirth wasn't really in the sense of diversity.
Oh no!
So,
Oh really? I wouldn't have guessed.
right. So I'm guessing that having a black Zeus is not what they're going for. So again, we have Zeus as Santa Claus again.
Oh jeez.
But yeah, so a lot of the designs that were far more diverse, even Apollo. I mean, Apollo had cornrows. That
Hmm.
is,
Which
yeah,
I liked. That was pretty cool. And
that was,
he kind of looked like he was wearing a helmet.
yeah, that it it really, like I said, it showed the uniqueness that New 52 was going for.
The only god
And
design I didn't like was Hades, where it's just a candle head. I was like,
he
what?
looked like a kid.
Yeah, I was like, what?
Yeah, that was a little too, I guess they were going for fantasy.
It's also kind of
Um,
icky when he tries to marry Diana, and I'm like, did John Byrne write this?
you are not gonna let that go.
No, I'm never laying that down because that's ridiculous. Why do people keep referencing his Man of Steel run?
Because again, you have Superman going, I love America.
Yes, of course.
Yeah,
So
that's all that matters.
So now we're going to talk a little bit about Blood of Zeus. And here's the thing about this show. Here's the cool part about here's what drew me to the show originally. When they said so basically the ideas that the producers of the show were talking about, and they said that like back when they were kids, their mom would tell them stories about like the gods, essentially like they were their superheroes. And that's kind of what the show kind of places the gods as, but they place them in like they're not above us in that sense. It's like they're still human, in other words. Oddly enough, these gods act very human. And it reminds me of this tweet that I read that I referenced in my Superman video. And it said there's a reason why we still talk about Zeus, Hera, Apollo, is because their stories were allowed to have the gods go through human struggles.
Exactly.
And that's what this show does. It places them in like full on like it places them in a human struggle because unfortunately, a lot of families deal with infidelity, and that's pretty much Zeus's whole thing.
Yes.
If anything, you'd be the god of infidelity, and it's like being scorned, not knowing
Which
your
is,
place in the world. Yeah, go on.
you know, that Hera is the goddess of women and marriage. So the fact that Zeus is the god, essentially the god of infidelity, that is a very dysfunctional match
The other thing
already.
I loved about the show, watching it, is the colors that they did with the animation, particularly in the flashback scenes. How like the gods look like they're kind of glowing at times, and I'm just
Yes.
like, okay, this is actually really cool because they said they intentionally want the gods to look like very attractive. Also, notice that that they left the gods racially ambiguous, so it's not like all of a sudden Zeus is black, but now all of a sudden he's white. No, it's really, if
Right.
anything, they're Greek. So you know what? That makes sense.
Yeah, I love when, characters can be racially ambiguous, especially if you're like reading a novel or something and
Mhm.
they don't exactly give a description of the character. So you go into your mind and you are imagining the character.
You see
And
yourself as the person, essentially.
yeah, and then when they cast, if they, adapt the certain novel into a movie, um, I guess you aren't limiting the casting. You can say, okay, this works as long as the actor can, you know, give that same feel of the character as I read them. That's all that matters. But trying to put them in this certain, category or whatever, um, yeah, it sort of limits the way these characters are. So for Blood of Zeus to make these characters with the designs and, like you said, racially ambiguous, I really, really love that.
Plus, they're bad at. I want an action figure of Zeus in his battle armor because that is the coolest Zeus has ever. Any of these characters, that is the coolest they have ever looked. I'm sorry, that is kick ass.
And it's just this, it's the animation is so sexy.
It's
Like
so
it is like
good.
they are like very, like you said, they wanted them to be attractive. And even if you can't stand like a certain character, it's kind of like, but they look so good.
The funny part is that season 2, did you notice how like Hades looks very much like Kratos?
He does.
I
But
wonder if they
also,
were inspired.
probably, but also it's the fact that, like we said, that these characters go through human like
Mhm.
struggles. That Hades, he was just so stressed out that he became bald. Like he had this long flowing hair,
And to
and
think about it this way, Hades, whenever they have like an adaptation of Greek myth that comes out in the movies, Hades is portrayed as a straight up bad guy, straight up villain. But in this, you can actually say that maybe the gods are the
sympathize.
bad guys because when you look at it, all he wants to do is be with his wife that wants to be with him too. It's not like he's kidnapping a woman. She wants to be with him. He wants a mother for his he wants the mother of his children to be with his children because they can't be together for like half of a year. So it's really like he's like, why the? I'm one of the three. I'm one of the big three, if you will. Why am I treated like someone else?
Yeah, and also it's just showing that they are being gods, and that was also a reference even for Diana in Crisis, is that thinking that her being immortal is a blessing. And she says, no, it's not a blessing, it's a curse. So a lot of the gods, no matter, how much power they have, it's not just all blessings, it's not all good. That there are curses that come with it. And we aren't happy about it, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
And the other thing I like about this show is because I like Zeus as a character and like whenever he's portrayed. I get that he's a womanizer and stuff. What I liked about
That's putting
this,
it mildly.
yeah, I know. What I liked about this is that it treated him, yeah, he's an imperfect guy, but he's still a good guy, if you will. He's not like he still wants to help his son and he still wants to rule well. He still loves Hera. It's just he has a lot of love to go around. But my point is, no, none of the gods here are like portrayed as straight up villains.
True. And that's the thing, is that with Hera, it seemed like they wanted to, but at the same time, it's like you can't blame her you know, for her reaction, because you put Zeus's situation very mildly. And like I said earlier, he likes to lay his scroll down everywhere, especially with,
And I love where Apollo goes, oh my gosh, another one of father's bastards again.
and it's kind of like, even Yeah, even with Apollo, he stood by, Zeus's side and tried to protect him from Hera and from her finding out, his infidelities and his it, you know, disguising himself into different people um to, be with these other women. And once Hera found out, I mean, she truly tried to trust Zeus. And as I said, that she is, and as it was said in the show, she is far more powerful than he is.
Oh
But
yeah.
she still tried to just let him have it, let him be the leader, let him have that as a king. But as we know, a queen is always more powerful than the king.
Yeah.
But
The other thing that I really liked about this season 2 specifically is that yeah, they portrayed her as kind of a villain season 1. Season 2 they kind of redeemed her, and the thing about it, one of the most powerful scenes in the season is when Zeus is on trial and Hera herself defends him. She goes, "Yeah, he's done a lot of stupid stuff during his rule as king, but do you have any idea how many world-ending events this guy has stopped?" She has every reason to tell the judges, throw the book at this guy, but she still sticks up for him.
and that is what even in reality women do. So as said, these gods, you are seeing that basically the whole argument about the gods is untrue. That they can feel, you can put yourself in their position in a sense. They can resonate. And with seeing them in very human situations, but on a different scale.
Mm-hmm.
And that's our same argument even for Clark and Diana's relationship. They're still um, the immigrant, Diana having the choice to leave her home to come to a new world. Clark being a refugee, he didn't have a choice, and coming to this, literally coming to the world, and trying to find himself. Both of them trying to find their place and not so much as fit in, but blend in, and have that sense of understanding and acceptance. But the bar is raised and they are on a total different scale of what you know of what a mortal will deal with, because they are superheroes at the same time. you know so it's all about just widening your imagination to understanding these characters. But honestly, if you just really just strip it down, take away the I guess the powers, and take away that they are gods, you still see people.
Yeah, exactly. And then we get to the genius of Blood of Zeus. And by the way, real quick, you know what I just noticed? Isn't it kind of interesting if we go with Zeus being the father of Diana, how he has gauntlets too?
You see, that those details are
I was like,
amazing.
wait a second here. That actually works for what Brit and I are working on. Interesting. So with this, here's the good part about this. Okay, so here's the thing. Like I said at the beginning of this episode, comic book superheroes have long been argued are essentially our modern mythology. And this show definitely leans heavy on that, with like the gods being the superheroes. Now, what's kind of cool about the way the show portrays them is that the gods are flawed and their humanity, if you will, is emphasized. And it's very similar to the way the Justice League are presented in the New 52 specifically. So in a way, this is the New 52 gods.
Yeah, definitely. And and as you said, that is why you feel like Zeus's design, and just the way they are presented is very much New 52. You know, it feels um influence.
Yeah, exactly. So then we get to so how are the gods presented in DC? Now, the interesting thing about the gods is that they're actually basically aliens, is that they're extra dimensional beings who are worshipped as gods, but they're essentially so here's what happens. So Britt, how familiar are you with the new gods?
A little bit.
Okay, so
Just a little.
essentially the fourth world was the creation of the fourth world, which is essentially New Genesis and Apocalypse, gave the gods their powers. It created them. It's like the energy was released, and apparently that's what they do. And what's kind of interesting, so it says here, Euxis. Do you know who that is?
That is dark side.
Yes.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. So when however, Euxis came to Earth and told stories of their exploits to the inhabitants of Rome, of the Greek gods to Rome. This caused worship of the Olympians to increase so dramatically that to cope, they split themselves into the Greek and Roman gods, who eventually became separate beings. So the reason why we have Greek gods and Roman gods is because of freaking dark side.
Interesting.
I did not know that. Wow.
Yeah, this is very much DC's history.
Yeah,
But,
it's easy. As far as I know, there's no dark side, thank God. But the way I kind of see this is that so yes, the gods play into Diana's life regardless of her origin, because even back when she had the clay origin in pre-crisis, post-crisis, they dealt with that. However, again, I argue that the Zeus origin puts them more closer to that, and kind of leads to a very fascinating dynamic with Wonder Woman. And when you think about it, if we're going into a world where she's with Superman, but this is one of the things that I love what Charles Soule did. He brought Clark into conflict with the gods.
Right, because it's showing that Clark, he has the power of gods, but he isn't power hungry. He is still very much humbled, and he isn't trying to be basically another Zeus. He's very much anti-Zeus.
Mm-hmm.
So that contrast, and also with Soul, how he tried to show Apollo and Clark, that Clark could be this second sun god, and that whole challenge of, okay, who could be the better sun god, and within what Futures End, how at least within that timeline, Apollo accepted Clark to be as his equal of a sun god. So yeah, that whole battle of Clark not really caring for the power, this sort of power challenge or whatever, but you have these gods that are very much trying to keep their legacy alive and also stay above. And you have these new gods come in, and they feel intimidated by that. So yeah, that is a big story all on its own, which honestly, whether Clark and Diana are together or not, like I said, that's a story all on its own, and I have no idea why DC has not tried to do, a story like that before.
Well, again, because we all know DC is allergic to really good ideas, so
Right.
It's like I had this idea a long time ago of a story where, all right, so the gods get very jealous of the love and adoration that the Justice League get. And they're like, they essentially call them pretenders. So the gods go to war with the Justice League and take over the Earth. Then this leads to, because the reason why I wanted that is because think of the position this places Diana in. The group that she holds as a family because of blood is now attacking her family because of association, essentially. and Diana has to decide where does she fit into this, particularly in a world where she's with Superman. So there is that, and it's like I'm like, you could have turned this into a big 12-issue event.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it can go either way of Clark and Diana being together or not, or even within the story if they are drawn closer to become a couple. You know, either way, you go. It's still Diana is the center, and this, you know, what we're talking about still centers around her, and this is essentially her world. So, it, like Tom King.
Oh boy.
And we talked about that last episode where he has this set of rules, and one of his rules were that he didn't want the Wonder Girls in the book, but because of fan outcry, he decided, okay, well, let me try to put them in.
I find it
And
hilarious that he thought he could write a Wonder Woman book without the Wonder Girls.
right, his whole logic thing was that he just wanted to show how awesome Diana is by herself. And it's kind of like,
We know how awesome Diana is. That's why she stuck around as a character.
yeah, but Tom King is that type of writer that we see that wants to leave their mark, no matter if it is at the expense of the character and their supporting cast or anything like that. It's just they want to leave a mark. And he's, of course, he's much more interested in writing Diana eating rats and simping for Steve. And, you know, and looking for a random birthday present for Batman that has nothing to do with anything.
I mean, let me put it this way. I'm fine with taking a break and doing like, okay, so we're doing some heavy stuff. Let's take a nice break. Diana's doing something normal. That's fine. But the problem with it, as much as Brit and I enjoyed for the most part the issue because of Superman and Wonder Woman, it doesn't work in a storyline where nothing has happened.
Not only that, but it's like it's just placed. Like you have a cliffhanger of her battling, and then you all of a sudden just have this random issue of her not battling, but she's okay. I don't even know if you know where this is placed.
I was about to say, because she's knocked out, she falls onto Grail, and then it's like, to be continued. She's going to go hang out with Superman. And I'm like, wait a second here.
Right. And just that whole thing and all of it ends up amounting to nothing because you know that within this story or, you know, this storyline, Superman will be the main character trying to help her because, and even crossing over, I would say, because Superman is dealing with, I guess, Metropolis not wanting Kryptonians to be in the city. So if you have the whole nation going against Amazons, and then you have Metropolis going against Kryptonians, why is that not crossing over? You know, this
Well,
shows
beyond that, even King said, "Oh yeah, truth, justice, American way. That's my third thing." And I'm like, "Then why aren't you doing anything?" Because here's the
right.
thing: in the first, like, I think it's the first issue, they mention about how Superman is advocating on Wonder Woman's behalf, but I never see it. That's the problem with the King run. He focuses too much on telling us stuff is happening without showing us stuff is happening.
That is
It
the
doesn't
problem.
necessarily work like that.
That is the problem with basically all of DC. They do a lot of telling, a lot of talking heads with the characters, but not showing. And that is the biggest thing that he also did within issue 9 with Steve. Is like, first of all, you have this in her head. So it's not really showing the emotional um, truth because she's making this up.
And it's not
She's
real Steve.
making, yeah, so it would be different if you're actually seeing Steve going through this and talking to her, and him being, I don't know, he visits was a visitor in the cell and he was talking to her. But no,
Now
she
that
is.
would be cool. That would be a that because then you're putting Steve, and maybe Steve, when he sees how Diana's treated, maybe he starts to have doubts. See, this is how you do it. The other
Yeah,
thing is, like,
but
he used it to character assassinate Diana. That apparently, when they were tracking like terrorists, they were spending time just making out.
yeah,
What?
that definitely was Wonder Woman 1984
Hey, Brit,
influence there.
remind the audience what Diana said to Lois when Lois asked, "Do you and Superman have like this special rule when it comes to being superheroes, but also dating?"
Right, in Superman and Wonder Woman 11, Diana says that the world comes first, and
Exactly.
when that stops, they do. And yeah,
By that
again,
logic, Steve and Wonder Woman should stop.
no, but the thing is, that is romance. They, for some reason, the unethical, and the dysfunction, or just the out of character moments of Clark and Diana for Lois and Steve, it gets a pass because they are the set love interests. So, them doing anything that would be, if they did it together, Clark and Diana, if they stopped and made out or something, that will
That
they
would
would
ignite
be
the internet, right?
right. And they basically, the book, the writer, and the fandom will be damn to earth, um, and pitchforks and everything like that. But for some reason, for with Lois and Steve, if Clark and Diana just basically say, forget the entire world, I just want to save this one person, and or do things like that, then yeah, that gets a pass for some reason. And it's very unfair that Clark and Diana's relationship is put under a microscope, and um, these double standards are set, and it's kind of like you're looking for a problem, and or you're
Exactly.
making up a problem with the relationship when there isn't a problem. Um,
Exactly.
but
Now,
with
oh,
mhm.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, but with Lois and Steve, like I said, they can do some very, you know, you go back to the Silver Age and the Bronze Age and everything like that, and you see the toxic nature of these relationships, and it more so either handicapped Clark and Diana, or you know created like this liability. And now all of a sudden, that type of toxic nature is romanticized and accepted only because
Exactly.
Lois and Steve are the set love interests. And honestly, you know, we can only speak on it and everything, but fandom is going to accept anything, and DC is going to accept the bare minimum and just stay in the same position they are in. So, unless it changes, but like I said, with Tom King's whole thing, it's just a very contrived story
Oh
that
boy.
you can really pick a giant holes within it. And yeah, just issue 7 as a whole, um there was some things that I liked, but like I said, it really amounted to nothing, because at the end Diana didn't want Clark's help, and it's kind of like, no, that's it doesn't make sense
If
when your
anything,
sisters.
the entire damn Justice League should get involved at this point.
Right, and especially when Amazons are being murdered, and it's the fact
Here's
that
the other
they're
thing. Here's the other thing. Isn't Superman supposed to be a global hero, not just an? Here's the big thing. For the love of God, Tom King is writing Superman in the Wonder Woman run like he is a government stooge a la Dark Knight Returns. But at least in Dark Knight Returns, Clark had a pretty damn good reason.
Yeah, King is...
Here's the problem. King fancies himself an Alan Moore / Frank Miller, but he's not.
He definitely does. And he has his own like PTSD with the military,
Which I
but at the
understand,
same
dude.
time,
Full respect for your service, dude, but you're you're making these characters act out of character.
yeah, and he's also glorifying it too. And the only reason why he likes Steve is because he's in the military. But Steve is actively, in a sense, going against Diana because he isn't speaking up for her. You know,
Yeah, he just and getting into a fight in the mess hall doesn't count. You know it,
correct.
Tom King.
Yeah. But just the whole thing of her, she hasn't shown any type of emotion. Like I said, it's a lot of talking, but it's not showing the emotion of her sisters, you know, dying, of them being held captive. You know, it's so much that just left, I guess, left to your imagination, and so because of that, you can't really feel the story. So
Exactly.
yeah, and honestly, I think the only reason why King, well, no, it was basically said King was put on the Wonder Woman book because of the movie announcement success of Supergirl. So they wanted, so you're basically having the sales are artificial
Now,
in a
what's gonna
sense.
happen if like the company is sold and they tell Gunn to and his crew to get lost?
Yeah, well, that would be something. But I mean, the Supergirl book, it didn't sell,
Yeah, the
when
only
it
reason why it
first came
sold
out.
well is the only reason why the trade was hard to find is because they announced it was the thing for the movie. When it came out and vanished.
Yeah.
It was in
So
dollar bins. So this whole idea about how like, oh, he wrote one of the seminal Supergirl books. No, he didn't. He basically ripped off True Grit and just put Supergirl on it.
uh, well, a lot of King's stories are ripoffs.
Mm-hmm.
I'm starting to really see a pattern with that. That's kind of
Isn't that kind of interesting there? So
right.
before we move on, there's one more thing I want to do. So I have a book that's called Wonder Woman: The Way of the Amazons. It's basically an in-universe lore book on the Amazons, and I wanted to read a little bit of how they consider the gods. So this is speaking as an Amazon. Being linked to the home of the gods, our sisters have become intimately familiar with the powerful residents of Mount Olympus. Our relationship with these immortal beings can be both a blessing and a curse. Well, that's an understatement. Zeus, the ruler of the gods, the sky lord with ultimate powers of storms and lightning. He is the husband of Hera and the father of Artemis, Athena, Apollo, Hermes, Ares, Aphrodite, and Heracles, and a bunch of other people. Practically the entire human race at this point. Hera,
Yeah.
goddess of women, marriage, and birth, and the wife to Zeus. Hera is known for her jealousy and vengeance, as well as mercy for those he deems worthy. Hestia, the pure and kind goddess of the hearth. Our generous matron gifts us with the warmth and a home and family. Artemis, the Olympian associated with hunting, the wilderness, and the moon. It is she who we honor in battle. Demeter, the earth goddess of the harvest. Demeter also rules over the divine cycle of earth, of life and death. By the way, season 2 of Blood of Zeus, I really liked how they actually gave other gods speaking roles now, like Athena and Hestia. And I swear, I was getting major Wonder Woman vibes from Athena.
Yes.
Like,
And
just
the fact that
really.
they showed like the Wonder Woman symbol on
Mhm.
the blanket cloth thing, that
Yeah, I'm like, that's kind of blatant. It's
yeah,
good blatant, but I'm like, okay. Athena. We Amazons are favored by the goddess Athena, who shows us the power of courage, strength, and law. It is kind of interesting. Also, in season 2, the Amazons show up, so that would be
yeah.
interesting. There, it would be hilarious if, like, they go if, like, in season 3, they go to Themyscira, where Alexia is from, and all of a sudden you see a little girl run by, and they go, "Diana, stop running!" I swear that would be hilarious.
That would be hilarious, but also if it happens, well, we're just going to keep this, copyright for you
Mhm.
because that is your idea. So if
Yes.
it, cut the check, if it happens.
If it happens, Netflix, pay me. Poseidon,
All right.
god of the sea and the brother of Zeus. Poseidon is beloved for his life-giving waters and feared for his tempestuous moons. By the way, he's the reason why we have Cyclopses, because that's what happens when I think he had sex with forget what, but he made Cyclopses.
You said, you forget what? They have
Yeah.
yeah.
Hermes Swift. Moving on. Hermes Swift, messenger of the gods, patron of healers, travelers, and thieves. Aphrodite, the patron of the Amazons, our goddess gives us with love, compassion, and joy. And Ares, god of war, corrupter of honor, scourge of valor, enabler of the most brutal faults of masculinity. The children and minions of this treacherous villain have wreaked havoc on the Amazons all throughout time. Now, here's the thing. I get where Tomasi was going for when he was trying to go with the bad parts about Diana being the goddess of war. The problem with that is that you're assuming that Diana is so easily corrupted. So either way, you can kind of see, and this goes back to our past couple of videos, how, like, it's particularly Tomasi did not respect Wonder Woman.
Right. Exactly. Diana herself, she's just as flawed, she's not perfect, but she is she represents purity of all the Amazons, of all the gods. She is that pure soul that bridges, and fights off all the evil or all the flaws that the others have. And, for Tomasi, King, and any other writer to try to make Diana this bloodthirsty warrior or, this fish out of water that I guess it's not that she can't connect to humanity. It's the fact that she challenges the ways of America that that makes the writer that already doesn't understand her question her humanity.
Exactly.
Um,
It just gets really, like, really bad on that. All right. So for the next couple of slides, what I did, I took select members of the Justice League and basically equivalence them in terms of what gods they are. So first, the leader of the league, who's kind of the king. To be clear, Clark is not a womanizer. I need to be clear on that. I'm just saying his
right,
position among the pantheon is among the Justice League is similar to Zeus's on the pantheon.
right. In Wizard World, I mean Wizard World, Wizard Magazine,
And more on that later, yeah.
yeah, they also did a comparison and reiterated that Clark is not a womanizer
Mm-hmm.
like Zeus. He has the power to rival Zeus, but he is very much the anti-Zeus when it comes to he is very much a being monogamous and
Mm-hmm.
um, respectful to women and respectful to any relationship that he's in. Um, he isn't the type that will have kids, running around everywhere. So yeah, the only comparison is being the leader and being the most powerful, as
And
in, but it's
honestly,
still
Brit, even before you and I were friends, I've been vocal about this. Before Brit and I were friends, I only knew her through her writing. And the thing about it that I always liked is that you always made sure to like. I always really loved, and I still love this, how like whenever like Hippolyta first meets Cal, or like whenever like Diana first meets him or something like that, it's always that first thing is like, is this guy like Zeus? Because he has all the here's why Superman is such a great character. He literally has and they say this in BVS, he, if he wanted to, he could burn down the whole planet, but he chooses not to. If anything, he chooses to serve us. And the thing about it is that I always liked, and this is why I wish Hippolyta was still alive in the new 52. In fact, it would be something I would change. I would not do the whole she's turned to like stone, because I would want in the comics canon for that Hippolyta to meet Clark, because and particularly since this Clark is in a relationship with Diana. We did kind of get that in the Soul run where Diana comes back to the island and says, I have met a man, and he's truly one of the best people I've ever met. He has all the powers of the world, but he is such a noble soul.
right. That really will show Hippolyta. You know, when they talk about like Steve, he is supposed to, again, they go through this whole thing of humanity equals being American, immortal and American. But what really would resonate within for the Amazons, though, is comparing that Cal is not only, if you want to continue with this America thing, but that he was raised in the outside world and he has this power, but he has such a humble soul that will truly show the Amazons how things can be different. But
Yeah.
showing but having this mortal man or whatever, honestly, that really doesn't speak to them.
Not only that, that's why Wonder Bat doesn't work, because when you look at compare Batman to Superman, Batman is for the most part everything the Amazons say about men is true. Clark
Right,
is the distinct refutation of in other words, if Diana ever wants to see, here's how I know our worldview is wrong. Behold Superman.
right. He has all the powers, but yet he is so humbled. That is that is truly how you show the difference, and especially to show the Amazons that the world has changed. He and Clark, he is a symbol, you know, of he's a representation of that change and for that change for the better of tomorrow. And so with Diana and Clark, whether they are friends or being together, that is what you want to show.
And here,
So
Britt, I got an idea. Not for our story. I'm saying for this in this discussion. Well, I know I had you sweating there for a second, but this
no.
is how I would bring back the embassy in the new 52. Have it where so the Amazons are not like turned to snakes. Hippolyta is not turned to stone. Diana brings Clark to meet her mother, and obviously the dude is nervous as hell because they have magical swords and he's vulnerable to magic. But he's like, I trust Diana. I really hope I don't get castrated, but here we go. So they come there, and then obviously eventually the Amazons start to see that like man's world is different. So they decide, okay, I think it's time we live in isolation no longer. So they open up the world. Hence, we get the Amazon embassy from post crisis, but now in New 52.
Right. And you have this, you know, this powerful, humble soul that also commits himself to protect, the Amazons as well.
Well, yeah,
And
because they're on
alongside,
Earth. He's protecting you too.
yeah, alongside Diana as well. So, I mean, what can Steve do? Steve can't do anything. So, with Cal, you just, like I said, it's always about opening up the story and challenging the characters, their viewpoints, and especially the Amazons and Hippolyta, because whichever iteration that you go for, it's either Zeus or Hercules. And Cal has been compared to both of them. So when Hippolyta meets him, and again, all the powers, but with a humble soul, it really changed her view that, okay, there is, even if he's just that one, but there is a change within men who has powers, or of something like that. There can be, just that 1% of a change, so we can't just write it off completely.
Well, by the way, here's a genius idea, DC. How about an ongoing comic book series about the gods?
That would, honestly, I would only be interested and read that if,
Again,
like,
I have all these ideas, and you can't tell me that's not going to sell, because I guarantee you a book about the Greek gods, that's going to sell the crap out of it.
the thing is, DC would have to, they would have to have a writer that can basically, in a sense, resemble, that feel of Blood of Zeus. Other than that,
Hire the Blood of Zeus writers to write it
right?
then.
Because other than that, the way DC is more, it's more so a be careful what you ask for type thing with DC.
And Brit, I actually have an idea for the story.
Oh
So
goodness.
because of this, and it just came to me, and I can't believe we didn't think of this when we were coming up with the ideas. But anyway, moving on to the next leaguer. I was thinking of Wonder Woman. Now, to be clear, Wonder Woman is not vengeful like Hera, but
Right.
in her position of the queen slash, even if she's not with Superman romantically, she is the second in command of the Justice League, the way I see it. So that's kind of where I put her. Plus, with Athena, she is like the best warrior, and she even has the wisdom of Athena, if you will.
Right. I mean, literally, if you go with the clay origin, that she was gifted by Athena and Hera, as I think it was six gods
Mm-hmm.
that gifted Diana. So yeah, two out of six. And again, from the Wizard magazine, Diana was still compared to being a Hera equivalent. But also there was a Superman and Wonder Woman exposition called Men of Steel and Women of Wonder.
Mm-hmm.
And Clark and Diana are um they're they are the modern, um I think it was
By the
the
way,
modern age. Uh-huh.
I have a list here of all the gods that gave Diana her power. So it's Athena, Artemis, Demeter, Hermes, Hestia, and yeah, obviously like Hermes and all. Obviously like to a certain degree Hera.
Yeah, so it was six. So yeah, it was the modern mythology or whatever, but they are called the mother and father of
Yeah.
modern age heroes. So yeah, it still all goes together whichever way you want their relationship to be. But either way, ultimately, Clark and Diana are the mother and father of superheroes. So, again, the equivalent of Zeus and Hera being the mother and father, king and queen of the gods.
Yeah, exactly. And again, for the people in the back, this does not mean Wonder Woman is characterized like Hera. Same
Exact.
thing. Same
Well,
thing. Like
except
same
for
thing. Like how with Zeus, to a certain degree, yeah, maybe. But it's like how Cal's obviously not a womanizer.
exactly, it's all about, honestly, it is just the title for them, as their position of within the Justice League and the physical power. Um, unless, honestly, unless you want to go with Injustice Wonder
Oh
Woman.
god. Then yeah, she is pretty much carbon copy of Hera. So here's so my third one. I had a lot of fun with this one. So what I did with this one, I thought about Batman. And yeah, Hades, but I wanted to think a little outside the box, Brit. So I decided Hephaestus and Ares. Hear me out on this. So Ares, because Batman is like the most genius tactician on the Justice League, how he took down the Justice League, and Hephaestus because Batman makes all the tech, he like funds the league, and he comes up with all those contingency plans. It's essentially like both of these complement Bruce's prep time. Obviously he's again, obviously Bruce is not evil like Ares, but to a certain degree in terms of Ares's tactical acumen and like his status of like a warrior, I think Batman very much aligns with Ares and Hephaestus.
You know what? That makes sense.
I
That
mean, yeah,
definitely,
you could have gone with Hades, and they did that in Justice League War, which no, it still works. It's just
yeah,
I want to go with something less obvious.
yeah. That, but that whole thing, and again, you aren't going to the surface level of things.
No.
You are breaking it down and being logical, and also just bringing in the a new view of the characters, and that's what we want. And that's why I'm saying that if DC tried to do anything like this, yeah, it wouldn't work.
Well, let me put it this way, DC, if you ever have an opening, I would love to write a Black Label Elseworlds book where the Justice League go to war with the Greek gods. Please call me up. Brit and I will co-write it. We will take care of it, and it will be a seller. I can promise you, because you've never done a story like this.
Right.
Yeah, so it's kind of like that. I only did these three because it's like I want the entire presentation to just be which two gods are Justice League members. But
Honestly, the way you broke down Batman, you would have to have like a some time to break down other gods, um,
mhm.
to really um put them with the leaguers, because it's true that you can have multiple equivalents, but
Mhm.
honestly, that will be something good that within the comments of the viewers. Why don't,
Yeah,
that be something fun that they can say, hey, why don't you just tell us,
yeah.
who do you
Put in the
think are the
comments.
equivalents?
Put in the comments. Take every Justice Leaguer or like whichever Justice League you guys want. Tell us which god you think that they is their equivalent, and try and be creative. Don't go like, well, obviously Cyborg's Hephaestus because he has all the tech, or Flash is Hermes. Yeah, we know that, but try and go a little deeper on that.
Exactly. That will be a fun exercise, and just showing, again, how blended these worlds can be.
Exactly. So that we mentioned the Wizard magazine article in here. So we're going to talk about that a little bit like that. So it was essentially like, here are all of the different leaguers, and obviously they have like Superman and Zeus. But the funny part, it's even more like Zeus when you take into account that's the electric blue
Blue
Superman.
Superman.
So I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, that's kind of really on the surface, Wizard.
Yeah, that is. I mean, it works, but that is very on the nose.
I'm like, you're not exactly pushing pushing that, dude. But I will say I like Huntress's Artemis. Obviously Oracle. I wonder who that is. But Plastic Man being Dionysius because he's kind of a party boy, and I'm like, oh, okay, I see that on there.
Yeah.
Steel as Hephaestus, Orion as Ares. That is very on the nose. And Zariel as Eros because of the angel. I like that. So a few of these are actually really good. It's like yeah. When I thought about that, when I was reading that top part about the Grecian formula, yeah, they're right. When Grant Morrison created the redid the Justice League, it is true that yeah, he basically picked the pantheon.
Yeah, and also ironically, just within this week, George Miller saying that he wants to direct a Justice League film, and basically saying that the Justice League is like the Greek pantheon. So that would be very interesting to see someone take on the Justice League and kind of really explore that perspective of them being new gods for the world, and how again they don't see themselves as gods. And especially, I know it wouldn't happen, but it would be very interesting to have the movie or story be very much Wonder Woman centric, and to show even her point of view, or even have it in her point of view of first person, that she is the one telling the story, that she is the in between, and she creates this world, or this certain perspective of, she sees the mortal world, the outside world, but she also sees this godly world. And how can she, as who she is, being the bridge, how can she put these worlds together without without either side, especially the godly side, feeling intimidated? And that pretty much is the respect the past and embrace the future type thing. Yeah. In a sense, essentially that is the main story, focal point.
The hilarious part, by the way, and Fandom Wire actually calls DC fans out on this for their hypocrisy, because the same people that are praising George Miller for saying, oh yeah, superheroes are like modern mythology, all the gods and stuff, are the same people that blasted Zack Snyder because he positioned the Justice League like gods.
I think okay, so yeah, it's very much hypocritical, because for some reason it's kind of like, I mean, it's the internet, and it's so popular to hate on things, to hate on people,
particularly Zach. But the thing is that, I mean, that's why he had that really long scene where like that woman is speaking a cantation to Aquaman, because that's who these guys are. They're particularly DC.
Yeah, they are essentially the new modern, gods, because of the powers, because that, the Greek gods, they were to protect the world. But again, they were looking for praise. They were looking for, Zeus was looking for his he
was looking for
conquest.
his next conquest. Yeah, exactly. But what I always wondered? Wouldn't it be hilarious if like we could time travel and there was like a bunch of people arguing in the Greek forum? They're like, Zeus would never act that way. Well, yeah, in this version told by this person, it's like they're arguing with people just like comic book fans are.
Oh my goodness.
I always wondered if that happened.
Honestly, just write the story.
That would be hilarious. See, that's a Mad Magazine article right there.
It is. It is.
That's got to be a YouTube short or something like that. That'll be fantastic. But yeah, and honestly, Brit, that's that's why when I got into comic books, that's what gravitated me more toward DC than Marvel. Because yeah, don't get me wrong, I like Marvel too, and ironically, this is also what steered me more toward the X-Men, because I like this whole idea. Because in my mind, at least, the X-Men and the Justice League, particularly, are like the groups that are often positioned as gods amongst men. And I really like that dynamic, particularly with the X-Men, because a lot of these people have like reality changing powers.
Right. But again, you know how you said it's gods amongst
Yeah.
men, and they are blending in, but it's not gods above men. And that is the one thing that should be emphasized, is that yes, they did not ask for the powers, and that is something too that I would say the X-Men kind of have a little bit more leverage over DC, is
Mm-hmm.
because they embrace their powers and they go through the trauma and all of that, but and they do feel the burden, but at the end it feels like they are embracing themselves though, and
Mm-hmm.
that they are far more, you know just trying to fight and truly fight to be better, to show the difference. And they aren't trying to fit in, or they aren't trying to change themselves for the comfort of normal humans. They are trying to, you know, they want to be unified. With DC, they have a problem with making it seem like having powers is a burden, but also that you have to choose between fitting in, and also at one point, are you going to let your powers go?
Mm-hmm.
And especially with Superman, there's
Yeah,
this
particularly with Lois. By the way,
yeah,
real
it's
quick, I wanted to bring up, what's kind of interesting? They kind of address this in the Throne of Atlantis movie when Clark and Diana are on their date. And I say the movie because, yeah, the comic basically has this scene, but I really like the way the movie said it when, like, they're on the date. And Diana's like, Clark, this actually works to be able to hide among them as one of them. And then Clark's like, it's not so much to hide, but to be one of them.
yeah, it's you're blending in,
Mm-hmm.
in your, because you're just embracing who you are as a
Mm-hmm.
unique individual, and just going about life as, as everyone else does, without thinking about it. And for DC to demonize that relationship as something that shouldn't be, or that the message that it sends is the wrong message. I don't know. Obviously, I don't like it, but I don't
Yeah.
understand why you position it that way when that is how the world is that we want to feel that being unique is something that should be embraced, and it shouldn't be
Yes.
that you hide.
And
It's
here's the
it's
thing. That's what the X-Men are great. And this is why, again, that relationship works, because it's dealing with the concept of not fitting in somewhere. And no matter who you are, I'm going to make an absolute statement. I guarantee you, everyone watching this right now and everyone that watches stuff on YouTube has felt like they don't fit in somewhere at any point in their lives. I guarantee it. And the X-Men and the Justice League particularly, and Superman and Wonder Woman specifically, particularly that relationship and that conversation in Justice League 12, particularly address that masterfully.
right. And again, for DC to they are so backwards with a lot, especially with Superman, because he first, his existence is now just solely um about Lois and her existence. So if she is old, of old age, now it's where it's some, I would say, Chloe's fans is they're not that they want now Clark to become old with her, for him to retire. But it's like Superman is supposed to be forever.
Mhm.
He is supposed to be immortal or at least aging slower as an alien.
Well, here's the thing.
And
As long as that sun is yellow, he's immortal.
exactly. And with Crisis, um it's and I think that's why they have a problem with Kingdom Come too, because it shows that Clark and Diana, that basically Kingdom Come, the story isn't revolved around Lois dying. She's part of it, but it's really because he's lost the Kents, and he lost thousands of people, especially from the Daily Planet, and that humanity turned their backs against him and chose, you know, an anti-hero that will kill over someone who has protected the world for over 20 years, and all of his efforts have basically gone to waste.
Mhm.
But in at the end of the story, you have where Clark and Diana are together, and he finds a new, and she also gives him the glasses to show that even if you have lost everyone that you thought, I guess the reason for you to be Clark Kent, Clark Kent doesn't have to die with them. You are still, you know, Clark basically forever, because that is who he grew up as. And so, yeah, that doesn't have to go away just because he's not with Lois or just because the Kents die. That he is who he is. He is Superman, he is Clark, he is Kal. That's it. And he isn't defined by um any of them except for the Kents and the L's. That's it. Um and Clovis fans have a problem with that, is the fact that Diana is the one that gave him back his identity, and she also gave him a new beginning, and she had her own new beginning as well, and they created a family together.
Well, not only
And
that, with Kingdom Come, is that people always bring up that, like, oh, Diana would detach Clark from humanity. Who was the person that told Clark to get off his ass and start helping humanity?
exactly.
Literally, she is the one who shows up at the farm. Actually, at first she says, "Hello, Clark." So she's even more emphasizing. Listen, she basically is doing what Batman said in Superman Wonder Woman. He goes, "Listen, as far as you know, you're a human. Look, they regret it. You have to start being you again."
Yeah. And also, again, human does not mean a
Human, yeah.
regular a regular, mortal person. It's just basically having a heart, having emotions, having this feel of life, and just, you know, being respectful, being kind and humble. That is what being human. It's still a very iffy word, but that's what that means. But
Mhm.
so many Superman fans have twisted it into the sense of, like I said, the regular mortal American acceptance. And I don't agree with that. I never will agree with that.
Exactly.
Um,
So now we're going to proceed to a little fun experiment Britt and I did. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to actually merge the two, like DC and Blood of Zeus. So I came up with two scenarios. One, merging DC to Blood of Zeus, and two, merging Blood of Zeus to DC. And then Britt also has ideas for stories, so we'll go off of that. So first is the one that's DC and Blood of Zeus. And I've been hyping this up for Brit. Are you prepared?
yes.
So this is so Blood of Zeus season 1 proceeds pretty much as usual, except I'm gonna add in a subplot where Zeus tells Heron, "Hey, listen, you're gonna need help to like fight the god to like achieve your mission to like fight the gods and all that. I want you to go seek out this warrior named Diana. You'll find her at this at this location or something like that. And we could say that like Diana is like fighting in an arena, let's say. He doesn't tell her yet who she is. I think Brit kind of can guess where I'm going with this. And he finds her and they team up, and like he basically helps, she basically helps train him with the sword. And at first he runs a little standoffish because he doesn't know at first that Diana is his sister. Yes, I'm going with the Zeus origin on that. He's still standoffish. So they travel the continent recruiting the Justice League, who are each basically avatars or acolytes of each of the gods. Like Superman is for Apollo, Flash is for Hermes. Now you may be wondering, Brit, what about Batman? Remember those shades that were doing Hades' betting?
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you a story. Stop me if you've heard this before. So a boy and his parents are walking out of the forum. They've just seen a show. And they are attacked by robbers. Except this time, all three of them die. And they're brought before Hades. And Hades, sensing a great deal of rage in the boy, trains him since he was like, I think it's like 12 or so when Bruce, like when the parents got killed.
He was 8.
Eight. Train him since he was 8 to be his agent, and trains him to like really fight. So Batman becomes one of those background shades of this is the origin for Batman of Hades right there.
Wow.
Yeah, he becomes the most effective agent. They call him the Batman because a swarm of bats will precede his entrance. And you can make it where like the Batman is hunting Heron's crew and Diana's crew, and we can we could say he's like teaming up with Seraphim, and we could say at first, so Batman doesn't exactly like Batman's there because Hades says, "Hey, I can give you revenge on the people that killed your parents." Obviously, near the end of the story, Batman will rebel against Hades because he'll start to see most gods as fickle beings of power. So then the finale of season 2 occurs, which is an epic battle with the Justice League battling against the gods. Now, and the Green Lanterns even arrive because it's like, they're like, wait a second, we got like gods fighting on Earth. What the hell is going on? So the Guardians just send like a bunch of lanterns, because here's what they don't tell you about Earth. Do you know why there's so many Green Lanterns of Earth, Brit? They actually address this.
Oh, wow.
And this was in the recent run. So the reason why there's so many Earth lanterns is because actually hidden on Earth. So you know how like on Oa, there's like this central power battery where like all the lanterns get their power.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a backup one on Earth buried beneath Earth.
Oh, wow.
So it's there because it's like, you got to protect your backup power supply. So that's partly why, because the Owens are like, we don't want the planet to get blown up. So the lanterns are there to say, chill out, guys. And the Justice League essentially deposes the hegemon, with Superman basically saying, you don't deserve this position. All you have ever done with power is essentially done it for your own amusement, for your own like abasement, and basically just because you just want to fight. That is not what ruling is. You're supposed to use your power to better the lives of people around you. You guys don't deserve the title of being gods. And thus, the new gods ascend.
Wow. That is very good.
There you go.
Very good.
And that is how... Now, this is the Justice League in Blood of Zeus. Meaning this is all taking place in ancient Greece and all that stuff.
Right.
Now, I got one more. What about if this takes place in the modern day with modern DC? Okay, so this is what came to me. So imagine this. There was a subplot in the new 52 at the end of Darkseid War. You find out Diana had a brother.
I really couldn't stand that because the just the twin brother thing and the whole thing about um sending him off, and it's kind of like they try to implement a lot that I guess contradicts the stories that was already built within
Mm-hmm.
New 52. Like if they knew of a some mysterious, like, what was he, a fisherman or whatever,
Yeah.
that had powers, I would think that at
Batman
least
what would at least know.
Batman or even Aquaman would have sensed Jason,
Mm-hmm.
or the other gods would have said something a little bit more, I guess it would have been seen in some way, hinted at. Hippolyta, I mean, the way Azzarello's story, it really centered around Diana, only Diana's birth and what she meant to the gods. It wasn't about, oh, she has a random twin brother as well that is basically this threat too. And I was gonna say, they probably, Jeff Johns was probably influenced by Blood of Zeus having this random son, but Blood of Zeus was years after Rebirth, but it was still the fact of it's a similar story that just doesn't make sense for Hippolyta,
All right.
and that it was, centered still the whole birth was centered around Diana. And if you want to add that Grail was born on the same day as Diana as well, just keep it that way. But a brother, just it didn't make sense for,
Allow me to do what I
for
normally
Diana.
do, Brit, and fix DC's mistakes. So this
Right.
brother's name is not Jason, but Heron. And
Yeah.
you could say that he has a profound distrust for gods because his father abandoned him as far as he know. We're still going with like the whole Zeus has been secretly like an old man who's been helping him and being a father and raising him. So he has a profound distrust of also Diana and Clark. I say and Clark because this is in the new 52 continuity. Rebirth does not happen in this world. And but eventually we get the Grail arc because I felt that was pretty cool. Where like he's being mind controlled and stuff. Eventually, he starts to help out. Occasionally, he'll show up in like DC events and like help the Justice League. So then he shows up in armor that's very similar to Zeus's armor in Blood of Zeus and all the final battle scenes. And he eventually joins the Justice League as the hero Olympian.
Interesting.
See, there you go. I fixed all of DC's problems. Now, Britt, wow me. What have you got?
Okay, so basically, well, how I can't really top that because you have to do it. But basically, just what I was saying about Hera,
Mm-hmm.
I really love her character.
Mm-hmm.
You
She was a
know,
really good character in Blood of Zeus. I really
yeah,
like her.
and it's the fact that she too, I guess because so much still centers around the men that I don't, the women need a little bit more emphasis.
Yeah.
And Hera, she was still, um, like I said, I don't really agree too much of just leaning more on her being the villain, and she wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just that she had a reason to be as angry as she was because her husband was the infidelity, was going too far, and the disrespect and the humiliation that she dealt with. So, but she's still the mother and the queen of the gods, and she has to take back her power
Mhm.
of, of that respect. So,
Ooh.
like what you have an idea, I know.
You could make it where she tries to like make amends by being a second mother to Diana.
Shh.
Oh,
Because that is a spoiler already for something that I'm already writing. So,
okay.
yeah.
I swear that was not intentional.
Uh, so, basically that, and the like I said earlier, the gods feel intimidated that you have these new gods that not only is one that is a demigoddess, and she's one of Zeus's billions of kids, but also if
Billions
she
of
was
kids. You got a point there.
but also if she is blessed, as this secret weapon too, for the gods of um basically as a holder or a protector of their legacy, as one. And again, I see Diana as this pure soul that represents the goodness of the earth,
Hmm.
of the Amazons, and of the gods,
Yeah.
of what the gods truly supposed to represent, especially with Hera as, the goddess of um marriage and women, and Athena, the goddess of wisdom, and Aphrodite, the goddess of love, pure love. That is who Diana is, and that is what she represents. So she is to basically marry these two worlds. But you have Aries, who is very much this wanting of power, you know, and this intimidation, just as he did in Blood of Zeus when
Hmm.
he felt that Heron had this, you know, he wanted to,
To
it
be a
felt
king,
like,
essentially.
right, and they knew that Haran had the power, that he had this power to overtake and become king, but they wanted to, especially Ares, he wanted to intimidate him, to make him feel small, especially the design of the gods being so much taller
Oh
than
yeah, I love that.
mortals.
They really emphasize that in season 2, and I'm like, good. Even what's kind of funny in Zack Snyder's Justice League, they even have that. Like the gods are very tall and they have like glowing hands.
Right. So with that already that they're tall, and to see Haran like really going back and forth with Ares, and he's looking up at him, but he's yelling back at him, showing that he isn't intimidated. That is basically the influence of, that story idea of the Justice League versus the gods. Is that, yeah, the Justice Leaguers, aren't they like, they're 6 feet tall? I think Clark is tallest, 6'4", or maybe Martian Manhunter,
Hmm.
but but you have the gods that's like 7 to 8 feet tall,
Hmm.
and they're fighting, and it's just this whole power dynamic, but it's more so still of, it's not just physical power, it's more so power of the heart and
Hmm.
power of motivation. And again, with Hera, she wants that back of respect, and and yeah, take vengeance on Zeus,
Hmm.
for all his billions of kids, but it is just to show again who she is. And that fight, especially at the end of season 1,
Yeah.
that really, that sacrifice that Zeus made,
He still winked at her. I love that.
and to show that their love is so dysfunctional,
Hmm.
and all of the bloodshed and the deaths are because of Zeus's infidelity, and how remorseful Hera was. You know, you implement that within the story of how so many innocent lives are lost because of this power struggle. And you're and basically having this one-sided beef. Like, because you want your legacy to continue on and never be forgotten, you are putting so many people at risk that could, give you that recognition and that praise that you want for however long. But instead, you choose to fight, you choose to make war, and that's just not the way to go. So,
Exactly. You can even have a funny moment where Batman shows up in an anti-god armor, and Superman is like, and then Batman's like, "Did you really think I didn't prep for the Greek gods invading?"
but at the same time, Batman basically gets decked.
Yeah, he's like, "I didn't plan for this," as he flies by.
Um, that would be such a tremendous story, just with just the fact of showing, like we said, that Clark is essentially the anti-Zeus. Diana is the anti-Hera, but she does have a connection of being that mother. And honestly, it's it's kind of a weird way, but how DC is disrespecting Diana, and it's a meta commentary with that, is that she is the mother of superheroes, the most powerful, influential um female, superhero, and she doesn't get any respect. So she's taking back her power, within the story that we are building. And also, again, it's a meta commentary of DC, that you are placing her in front and center, as she
Mhm.
should be.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing about it is, I like to think, it's gonna be really fun. It'll be really fun. We could see into the future, because I guarantee you, even 100 years from now, we'll still be hearing Superman stories. That's that's as much as we like to clown on DC and Marvel, they have created what are essentially timeless characters that I'm sure will be around forever, because there's so much that you can do with these characters. In other words, they're never gonna go away. No matter how
Right.
bad like the comic book industry goes, we'll still be hearing stories about Superman and Wonder Woman.
I mean, especially when they are going to be public domain um
Brit,
in
we need
less
to.
than
We can get the copyright for Superman and Wonder Woman and put them together finally.
right. And I mean, it's also becoming easier for, fan fiction writers, that their
Hmm.
stories are becoming more and more like sought out in a sense of creativity, because it is a shame, but it's also, maybe it is a just one of those type chances that the fans, I would say, they are very passionate about the characters, and at least some fans, have,
We are. We are. We at
yeah,
Comics League are very passionate about this. Hell, I owe all of my friendships I've made through this channel to these characters. I owe my friendship to Brit because of these characters.
right. And it's that really all that matters, because how DC is, they are supposed to be the caretakers of these characters,
Hmm.
and they aren't taking care of them quite well as they should be. So, as fans, we all have our different views. We gravitate towards the different iterations. You know, Unapologetically, we love the new 52.
Well, yeah.
And Either way, we can go with Clark and Diana's relationship, whether it's just friends, friends with benefits, or a whole relationship. You know, they have this multifaceted, multi-layered relationship that we resonate with because the important message that they give of accepting being different and
Exactly.
and just bringing people together in a unified manner of happiness and and just being that inspiration and that joy. um so with the stories that we tell, just as we did now, we are opening up our minds instead of thinking that we have to be just in this certain box of acceptance with these characters, that we have to follow the status quo. And the status quo being as stagnant as it is not helping DC at all.
Hmm.
You know, that is why they had the New 52 reboot in the first place, is because they needed something new. They needed fresh blood. They needed a new
And they didn't have
audience.
time to bring the universe to a conclusion. For anyone that's going to say, well, if they had just brought it to a conclusion, I think people would have been happy about it. They didn't have the time to do that.
Right. WB was not giving them any type of chances of, um, I mean, they were able to kind of give a wrap up, but it wasn't satisfying. Um, but again, it was WB's pressure, and you still cannot blame DC because they had their backs to the wall and they had to do something. Was I would say the only fault is that they didn't try to slow down when they had the chance to basically kind of polish New 52. Instead, they got cold feet, they listened to the internet, they reverted back to a comfort, and now they're right back to what made them reboot in the first place, you know.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. That's why I think, it'd be kind of funny. I bet you they're kind of marketing the Absolute comic, the Absolute Initiative, as like an alternate universe, but they really think if this works, let's reboot it.
yeah, at this point, they really do have to reboot because seeing the Batman book um drop
The very
out
fact
of
that
top,
Batman is not in the top 10 is terrifying for DC. Guess what?
right,
That was what, it's kind of funny. You know why Tom King was kicked off of Batman? Because Hulk outsold Batman during his run. Hulk.
I
Now,
mean,
Immortal Hulk was fantastic, but when Hulk is outselling Batman, then you know you got issues. Pun intended.
yeah, right. I mean, X-Men has gotten a boost, you know, as we said earlier, before recording, X-Men 97 really changed the game fast.
Yes.
As far as reviving an old show, and DC cannot do revivals. They can barely do new shows.
Well, here's the thing:
But
the stuff that they could revive. That, let me put it this way: if you want them to revive, let's say JLU, look at how they butchered Wonder Woman in that show.
exactly, you have to have respect for your female characters,
And that's the thing.
especially
That's
in
why we were all in favor of that show returning, because they showed such reverence and respect in the original show to Rogue, to Jean Grey, to Storm. And if anything, the show somehow took that and one up them in terms of respect.
right. And you have so many people that really fast became fans. But Superman and Wonder Woman, especially those two, are again the mother and father of the modern day mythology and uh, of superheroes, that they are lacking so much. And honestly, my adventures with Superman, it doesn't even come close to 97. Not at all. You can have Twitter hyping it up because that's what they do. But we know that DC mean that Twitter may hype things up, but when it actually comes to support, they don't get it.
And that's
And
the thing.
DC,
This is the one time Grace Randolph has said something right. When they announced the Teen Titans movie was in development, she's like, this sounds cool and all, but the problem is, will DC fans show up? Because remember, they said they were going to show up for the Flash. They said they were going to show up for Blue Beetle. Remember the whole hashtag Blue Beetle battalion? And when that didn't work out, they were like, Aquaman Armada. Well, Aquaman made cash, so it kind of worked there. But the point is like, it doesn't always work like that. We can go off of Twitter.
yeah. And I mean, that is very, it's very sad that DC has gone about thinking that in order for them to, I guess, stay relevant, that is just social media. But you're a company. You have to make money too,
Yeah, that's kind of the purpose of a company, to make money. But I don't know. I'm just a political science major. That's all I know. I mean, technically, I'm a science is in the name, so I guess that kind of works. But I think the thing that I really just want to emphasize here is that it's important that for fans to remain positive and not toxic. And here's the thing, it's that it never here's the thing about this. It's like, it never ceases to amaze me the effect that these characters have on people. And to a degree, I get why people get so aggressive about these characters. And Sam was very congratulatory about this. He says, no, listen, they're just married to whatever era of any type of media they get into. And that's fine. You can prefer that. I mean, it's pretty obvious with that I like the new 52. I also like other stuff. I use this as my gateway, if you will, to read, like, even because here's the thing, what Zack Snyder and the new 52 did well, because Zack even said, I wanted to break these characters down to the fundamental core so you get who they are, then build them back up. So now that you know who they are, you can appreciate them more. That worked with me, so I started reading post-crisis, modern stuff. I stopped at Rebirth for obvious reasons. But the thing that I really it always amazes me is, let me put it to you this way. I have a channel now where all I do is talk about fictional characters with some of my best friends. Because of these characters. Just imagine that.
While we're talking, it's kind of funny that someone posted about Superman and Wonder Woman on Twitter. Of course, Twitter. The basically hell site of opinions.
Mm-hmm.
And someone basically said that Superman and Wonder Woman is shallow because they are powerful beings. And what is it about their relationship? Is it because they're outsiders? And basically is like, okay, whatever. Again, that honestly, the comment itself is shallow.
Yeah, exactly.
Because being an outsider means so much more. And that being of a different race, literally, because Clark is from a different planet.
Yeah.
So
he ain't human.
And of an ethnicity, of a different culture, being an outsider means so much. And the world is built on that. It's built on different cultures and how we are, and it makes a brace, because either if you don't accept, that you are divided and you continue to be divided and continue to be isolated and, in this box. But if you embrace it and accept it and respect it, we can create beautiful things. But for someone to belittle that they are outsiders, and again, what that represents of Clark being a refugee because he lost his home. He lost his entire planet. He is the last of his kind. You know, are you really going to belittle that? You know, put yourself in we see in reality of children losing their homes. So many children are in orphanages, or they grow up to be on the streets and stuff like that, or they grow up to have these trust issues, these emotional issues, um, mental issues, because they never had that parental guidance, or they just lost because they don't know who they are. Diana, she's a refugee. I mean, she's an immigrant because she wanted to explore the world. She wanted to learn of different people and to bring people together. But yet her ambitious her being so ambitious, and her mission seems very much, you know, um out of reach because the world is so stubborn and doesn't want to come together peacefully. And here we are, we see in reality, so many people are showing exactly what we've argued, is that humans, quote unquote, aren't superior. They are just as shallow, they are just as mean, heartless. They don't understand different people, and their view of if you are different being, is something bad, and they demonize it. So, you know, just it's so ironic and funny that, every conversation that we have on this show is about embracing, and we continue to emphasize on that, and we continue to, you know, bring that up and hammer it down, you know, just for people to um appreciate, and to just let it be known that it's okay to like something different. That, you know, just even if Twitter doesn't like Superman and Wonder Woman, there is a community that appreciates the relationship and what it represents.
Exactly. And I think that's an excellent thing to leave us off on. Before we leave off, before we go to self promo, I want to give a shout out to the account Jit on Twitter, because she was sending us some nice fan mail. And just shout out to you. I really appreciate that. You have no idea how much it means to Brit and I, because here's what you guys have to understand. We could make the greatest discussions on YouTube. We do, but that's beyond the point. It's if no one watches them or finds something of value of them, it's useless. So the very idea that we still get like the type of love we get from the community means like literally everything to us.
Yeah, because the support that we get is, like I said, so many people want to um, tear you down if you don't follow the status quo. And with me um, having the Instagram, and for um, dealing with trolls and messages that are, very disturbing, um, the support and the very kind messages that we receive, it keeps us going because we know that in some way we are helping another fan out to, be as unapologetic as we are with supporting, what we enjoy. And it's just, as I said, we are a community of acceptance and just that we can have different opinions, but we can also be respectful. And that is what you and I want to emphasize and show, that the conversations that we have are open for any opinion as long as you are respectful.
Exactly. And that's what I always say about about what we do, because it's really just as long you can disagree with me. You could think SuperWonder is crap. You could think Snyder's crap. But as long as you're a nice person, I could care less. And again, shout out to Jid because she was just like that. But anyway, so Brit, before we wrap up, how about you tell us any particular stories that you happen to be working on currently?
Well, within the show, I've already gave
Mm-hmm.
massive hints. And
Mm-hmm.
spoiler of Hippolyta, Hera, and Austria, dealing with motherhood and just that of legacy. And the Athens story, that will be posted soon. Um, chapter 4. Then we have chapter 2 of our story, Shelter, which I'm going to get my points for that soon enough. And just the everyday back and forth. Jared is still very far ahead with
I
points, of
am
course.
mountains ahead.
Yeah, but I got you right before the show, so I'm very happy about that. And just a couple of one shots that I have, of course, as a Beyonce fan, Cowboy Carter is still the influence for a lot of um me uh getting my points and influence of different stories right now, one shot. So yeah.
Yeah. So stay heroic, everyone. Remember, Lois Lane is Lois Lane. We belong. She belongs with General Zod. Zoe is the Maxabout for life. See you later.